Hey everybody, Anthony Alfredo here, driver of the number 21 Chevrolet Camaro for Richard Childress Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, as well as CEO and founder of the ESports Racing League. We kicked off the second season of the ERL last week at Michigan with an intense, action-filled race. This week, we head to the Daytona International Speedway road course on the new configuration with the front stretch chicane, and I expect this race to be even better than the last, and maybe even one of the best of the season. I'm very excited for it. I hope everyone enjoys, and good luck to the drivers.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the Esports Racing League, live from the virtual Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. Tonight is round number 2, the TobyChristie.com 70 minutes of chaos at Daytona.
And a big thank you to our friend Jonathan Sanford for the introduction, former PA announcer for the San Antonio Spurs out of the National Basketball Association. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Justin Prince, Brett Suggs, and tonight's producer, Ryan Bauer, powered by Top Flight Computers. We welcome all of you to Podium Esports coverage of the Esports Racing League, regardless of where you're watching, whether or not it's the ERL, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Trovo, Twitter, Periscope, wherever you are. Glad to have you along for the ride all the way through as we come to the road course at Daytona International Speedway, where stock cars are going to be racing in real life for the first time in almost 50 years this weekend. And Justin Prince, I think if we even found out anything from the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series event last night that was held here, it's that this race is going to be completely and totally chaotic, and so is aptly named.
Yes, indeed. There was a lot of trouble spots. We were talking about this prior to tonight that popped up, such as the International Horseshoe, the bus stop, and that turn 4 chicane. It's so tricky to wheel the car around here because not just the fact you're running a stock car on a normally endurance road course, but as well, the grip levels have been something drivers have struggled with. The tire fall off has been massive here throughout the week so far. The brake pressure has been something a lot of drivers have struggled with at times. It's also been the difficulty as well of handling the set corners and trying to make sure they don't hit the curbs, let's say, too hard in turn 4 and get engine damage or slide off the racetrack into the turtles. At least 3 drivers off the jump, James, did that in the Coke race last night. It's not an easy track. It's not going to be easy for these competitors tonight.
I know of at least one that is in tonight's race. Zach Novak got the turtles a little bit last night and still managed to bring it home with a solid finish. Couldn't quite say the same for Chris Overland, though, who DNF'd last night. Casey Kerwin, the other one who got the turtles. And we turn now to our second man in the booth tonight, Brett Suggs, making his debut with Podium Esports. And Brett, you've had the chance to run this a little bit in practice over the course of the week and get a feel for the road course. What have you noticed about running this circuit, and what do you think is going to trip up these drivers the most this evening?
Well, absolutely. As you said, tripping up these drivers, that's going to be key. If a driver can stay smooth and hit their marks lap after lap, that's what it's going to take to finish in the podium for this race here tonight. But it's going to be really interesting to see if a driver can nail every braking point, every shifting point to get their way through all 70 minutes of this main event tonight.
Plenty of storylines coming into tonight, but before we hit them, we turn to tonight's presenting partner of this race for the Esports Racing League. It is Toby Christie of TobyChristie.com. And Toby, welcome to Podium Esports, and welcome to tonight's broadcast of the Esports Racing League.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. This is going to be fun. I'm excited for this thing. Just kind of like the drivers, even us media folk are kind of wanting to see what this track, this layout does for these cup cars. So it's a little bit of research for me for this weekend as well.
There are plenty of things that I think we can glean from sim racing, but I think it's so interesting to see members of the media start to pick this up. You're not the only one that's gotten really heavily invested in sim racing throughout the years, and I think a lot of those folks have risen to prominence. Justin Malillo, Seth Edgar, Jacob Seelman, and yourself all beginning to pick up the sim racing coverage. And what do you think sim racing has to offer to the media corps, and what can people learn from sim racing as far as covering sim racing goes that you think they can apply to real life racing?
Well, for me, it's a lot more content. So even if you have some weird downtimes, which right now we don't have a whole lot with the crazy schedule we've seen, but it just gives you some more content to kind of help bring your viewers, your readers, and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, it's still racing. That's what we all love to watch. The other interesting thing is guys like William Byron have taken an iRacing career, parlayed that into a professional career in real life. So that's something that's kind of possibly something to watch out for in years to come as well. Which one of these guys might be the next William Byron and work their way to a Cup Series ride from this?
What is your relationship with sim racing in particular? How involved, how invested have you been with iRacing and maybe some of the other things out there in the past? We can stretch it all the way back to NASCAR Racing 2 and 3, the very early games from EA Sports back in the 2000s. What's your relationship with NASCAR video games been like throughout the year?
Yeah, I had NASCAR Racing 1, 2, and 3, and all the other ones after that as well. I think I joined iRacing in 2010 or something like that. So I've mixed it up for a lot of years in sim racing. I haven't ran as much iRacing in the last few years just because I've been busy. We've had a child at home. I got married, all that stuff. So the sim racing thing really slowed down for me around that time. But during the coronavirus shutdown of the sport, I did kind of get involved and start running some more races. I think I won like 6 or 7 races in the local or the open lobbies or whatever. So it was fun, and it always is fun. Just don't have the time I'd like to be able to do it, but it's a lot of fun.
Entertaining all the way around, I think. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think we may have raced each other in the April race that put down the foundation for the Monday Night Racing League before Martin started. The Big Green Egg race in the street stocks at Charlotte Motor Speedway was really the first big event for that group. And how cool has that been to see a league primarily of media members pick up and gain a few more folks as well that have brought a lot more eyeballs on that series and on sim racing in general?
Yeah, it's been really cool. I think they even had Kyle Busch in their series this past week. So they've had a lot of really big names that have showed up. And yeah, I do remember that race. I didn't perform very well in that one, so that wasn't very fun for me. But yeah, no, it's a good time, and it's cool to see how much that series has grown and how popular it's becoming. It's pretty fun to watch, and like you said, a bunch of media guys. So I'm sure the real world race car drivers love watching that, and I'm sure they also love seeing Kyle Busch beat them all the last week.
Kyle Busch winning in a truck race. Stop me if you've heard that one before, right?
Yeah, that's something we never hear, right? It's almost like every time he gets in them.
I know, he's so automatic. It's almost like it's deja vu. It's so strange. Felt like I had seen that race before. But we digressed from all the jokes. I want to jump back to a point that we brought up just a little bit ago. But for people who want to become the next Toby Christie and become, maybe the next Jim Utter or Jeff Gluck, what kind of opportunities do you think sim racing offers in terms of training media members and getting them ready for working with either regional touring series when it comes to, maybe ARCA East, ARCA West, anything at their local tracks in the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly series or any of the national touring series? How can aspiring media members learn from sim racing and what can they do with sim racing to build their skill set for a shot at real life coverage later on down the road?
I think they can pick up a lot, actually. A lot of the races kind of play out the same way. You can kind of really see how the action works its way out, how you can kind of develop storylines just from the first racing is basically the exact same. I mean, it's a sport. That's what it is. It's the exact same thing as the real world, just nobody's getting injured when they run into walls and stuff. So that's actually a positive thing, that nobody's getting injured. But yeah, as far as all that's concerned, I really think there's a lot of things you can take away from this as a media member or an aspiring media member and kind of apply to the real world stuff as well. You start looking at things and it's like, I mean, the grind's the same, the schedule's almost the same. You're having to pick up on everything. You have to interview people, and a lot of it's the exact same. I think it's actually a really good tool for people who are trying to work their way up the ladder to kind of get started in the virtual world.
And Toby, finally, if people want to find out more about you and your operation, where can they find you on the web and where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, so like you guys said, TobyChristie.com is the website. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Toby_Christie. I'm also the co-host of the Final Lap Weekly podcast. We've done like 632 episodes or something at this point. It's still going strong. And also, I've got another staff member at my website, Joseph Srigley. If you guys would like to follow him as well, he's pretty good at what he's doing. He's kind of an up-and-coming media member as well. His Twitter handle's at Joe_Srigley, Srigley. So that's how you can follow all of us and keep up with what we're doing.
Well, Toby, thanks so much for your support of the Esports Racing League. Thanks as always for coming on to the broadcast tonight. And hopefully you'll enjoy your 70 minutes of chaos. I think you've earned it after all the work you've done, and we'll see just how chaotic it ends up being.
No, man, I'm pumped. It's going to be great. And I think we're definitely going to be seeing some chaos. I don't think we're going to see guys kind of just taking it easy out there, especially when you have a timed race. There's no set amount of laps. They don't really know what's going to happen. You get weird cautions and stuff, could stretch things out weird. This is going to be fun. I'm excited to watch this thing.
We'll see how it all pans out over the next 70 minutes. That's Toby Christie of TobyChristie.com. And JP, I know you've been around him for a good long while. I think we all have. He's been in the media for so long. And I think really cool to see so many of that end of the industry jump into sim racing and really take it on headstrong, especially as the pandemic's broken out.
Yes, indeed, and it's been great to see them continue and grow their presence, actually. In 2020, especially in iRacing, started early off, seeing a lot of these competitors, when you think back, James, to a couple guys from, say, motorsport.com hitting the racetrack, a couple driver media members here and there racing off and on. Now you actively see them a lot. They are some of the best drivers, actually, I've seen in some cases. They can put on a good show. And it's been great to see the amount of growth this year when it comes to virtual racing, especially with everything that has happened in 2020, to give a lot of opportunities for people to realize, oh, hey, there's the virtual equivalent that is very similar to the real world equivalent.
We will get set for all the action here from Daytona as we take a look at where in the world we are. Basically right next to Interstate 95. You go about a mile on towards the beach and you'll find Daytona International Speedway, the world center of racing in Daytona Beach, Florida. And a lot of fun. The road course is where we are this week. We're going to head to the Oval to throw down the final race of the regular season in real life in a few weeks' time as well. So be a lot of fun across the board, I think, as we get set to bring you the starting lineup for tonight's race. The TobyChristie.com 70 minutes of chaos from Daytona.
And now it's time for tonight's starting grid for the TobyChristie.com 70 minutes of chaos at Daytona.
Eddie Kerner, your pole sitter, with a 1 minute and 48.469 second lap to take top spot over Jimmy Mullis. Blake Reynolds begins tonight from the third spot. Fourth will be Nathan Lyon. Colton Salick in the 99 starts fifth. Anthony Burrows begins from sixth. Seventh will be Alec Martinez. The 18 car, Yusuf Ghali, rolls off from eighth. Ninth will be the 01 of Braden Boulos. And 10th will be the 90 of Zach Novak for Richmond Raceway Esports. JP?
Jose Solis Jr. starts at 11 tonight. Connor Horn qualifies for his first race of the season. Will start at P12, with Brandon McKissick, one of the top drivers in practice, in 13th. He'll start alongside his Nexus Esports teammate in Tucker Minter, with Caden Rush in 15th position. Matt Danson starts in 16th spot, with Donovan Strells deep in the pack in P17 with a 149.955, the last of the 149s. Brett Gardner starts in 18th spot. Brian LaPrade deep in the field tonight in the 150s, with Ethan Lane starting alongside him to round out your top 20.
Blake McCandless will start 21st. We'll see if he can pick up a win where his beloved Hurricanes couldn't quite get the job done in the Stanley Cup playoffs earlier today. Nick Miller rolls off from 22nd. 23rd will be Michael Finlayson, and Nathan Rabago begins tonight from 24th. It's Cody McCauley, ERL veteran from Season 1, in 25th. 26th will be Adam de Blasio. AJ Stravato makes his season debut and rolls off from 27th. 28th will be Eli Hinton. And Triffin Davis begins from 29th. And 30th, JP, will be the 56 of Garrison Hogan.
Keep an eye on that 56 indeed. Evan Rice, though, in 31st spot. Presley Sora qualified 32nd on time. Chris Bravo deep in the field in 33rd. Blaze McKinney in 34th. Justin Vitello deep in the field in 35th. Tried to pull strategy at Michigan. Didn't work out for him in the end. Zachary Phillips was 36th on time with Kevin Brown. Nick Indelicadio in 38th spot. DeWeese and Drake were rounding out the top 40 in times in the qualifying, James.
It was Nick Olson in 41st. Caden Nankings in 42nd. 43rd was Nicholas Short. Robert Hanrana 44th. 45th to Steven Rosales. Alexander Kranke 46th. 47th Victor Williams. Colton Zimmer 48th. 49th Brian Kendrick. 50th Alex Bell. Lucas Graham. Colby Wells. Jared Ickes. John Midget. And Casey Drake. The final 5 cars in a 55-car field at the World Center of Racing for this second race of the fall season for the Esports Racing League. We turn our attention now to the track facts. This is, of course, the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. We race on the NASCAR version of the road course with the new chicane that they added, which gives you 14 turns in total for a lap. It is 3.57 miles, 5.74 kilometers in distance at the circuit that opened in 1959. 31 degrees of banking in the NASCAR turns, 18 degrees of banking in the trioval, 2 degrees of banking on the straights on the oval, no banking in the infield. Tonight, we race for 70 minutes. Your fuel window is going to be about 19 to 22 laps. In sim, it is iRacing Day, the default day for iRacing, May 15, 2020. It is about 4:40 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time local. 75 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 88 degrees track temp, partly cloudy up above us, winds headed to the southeast at 9 miles an hour with humidity of 59%. Brett Suggs will come to you quickly before we get the green flag here. Final thoughts and final expectations for Toby Christie's 70 minutes of chaos.
Yeah, I'm just certainly anxious how this first turn is going to go. These drivers have laid down their qualifying laps. Now it's time to put those laps into action. We have a full field of 40 cars here. They're all going to barrel it down hard into turn number 1. So we're going to see who's going to overheat the brakes and who's going to come out smoothly as we begin this 70-minute feature race.
70 viewers on Twitch, 70 minutes of chaos, courtesy of Toby Christie, and a lot of fun to come your way. Glad that you're watching Podium Esports coverage of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats. We're glad to have you with us as Eddie Kerner, one of the top hopefuls for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series in 2021, will lead us to the green flag, and we are underway with the second race of the ERL season, and it's Kerner and Jimmy Mullis for Richmond Raceway Esports in that 46 car that are going to run side by side in a 1, and we'll see how nuts this start is. They were pretty clean and pretty clear in the Coke race last night. Same story, I think, through 1 and 2. Not too much madness amongst the group there. 3 wide a little bit further back. I saw Connor Horn get into Tucker Minter over 1 and 2, and now this is where it's going to get very close. 4 wide in spots as they enter the International Horseshoe for the first time as Jose Solis Jr. goes around on exit. Looks like he's the only one, I think, that ends up in big trouble as everybody begins to string out, and JP, they make their way towards the West Horseshoe for the first time.
That's actually more drivers who made it through that section in the first lap compared to the NASCAR race without contact, where there were 3 drivers in the grass in the horseshoe and 1 in the tire barrier. But a great start so far for Kerner. Great speed from his machine. Jimmy Mullis coming off his best career road course finish. Well, Blake Reynolds, he won in his foot with Team Dillon Esports in the 24 Hours of Daytona back in the wintertime. So 3 competitive drivers up at the front. Don't forget about Nathan Lyon. He's always very quick when it comes to these types of races throughout the week.
Very, very quick indeed. Jimmy Mullis was runner-up last night here at the Daytona International Speedway road course and is right where he left off at the beginning of this race, currently sitting in P2 behind Eddie Kerner in that number 21, and then Reynolds there, as you said, with all the chops that he picked up in the 24 Hours of Daytona in January, which seems like such a long time ago. And then an interesting mix of drivers just behind them that have picked up space. You've got Nathan Lyon, Colton Salick, Anthony Burrows, and Zach Novak, who I think is going to want to try and avoid the turtles a little bit. It sounds like, from what I heard last night, his car might be a little bit happier in cloudy conditions. And Brett, as the resident driver here, explain to the folks at home the difference between clouds and sunshine when it comes to the handling of these cars, especially on a road course. What do the lack of sunlight and the cooler air temperatures do to help or maybe change the car in certain cases?
Well, absolutely. You got to consider with cloud coverage, that's blocking the sun from reaching the track surface. Therefore, the track's going to cool down. The handling of the cars is going to improve as the tires are going to be cooler. The driver's going to have more traction. And overall, the driver's going to be happy that the car is handling better. Now, vice versa, when you have the sunlight visible to the track surface, it's going to rise that track temp up, make these cars slide around, and it's going to be very cautious for the drivers as they're hitting their brakes, as they're coming out of the corners, how much they can put the power down with the sunlight on the track.
How can they handle it? That's a very good question. As Jimmy Mullis was able to get around Eddie Kerner to take over the race lead, and here comes Blake Reynolds. The 3-car sits in P3 at the moment, but that may change when they get to the bus stop. And we saw a lot of action over there last night, JP. Seems like if drivers got into one another, it was over in this section of the racetrack where it seemed to happen as Kerner gets loose out of the bus stop. So there goes Blake Reynolds to the inside.
Yeah, second time he's had a bobble out of one of those chicanes. One time in the bus stop, one in the final corner. That's how Mullis got by. But one of the things that Reynolds hit upon when it came to the difficulties of this track, especially when you get back to turn one after the front stretch, is you normally don't want to turn under braking. And this is a type of racetrack where you're kind of forced to do it almost, where it really shreds the tires and risks locking up the tires around said corner. So there's a lot of risk by trying to set it hard like you need to get around this tight corner when you need to in this stock car in a clean and efficient way.
All eyes here on that battle between Reynolds and Kerner as you ride on board with Jimmy Mullis in the 46 machine. We look off the back of that Coca-Cola Energy machine for Richmond Raceway Esports. Mullis, of course, winner last week at Michigan International Speedway to start off the fall season of the ERL and the defending champion of the ERL to boot. So big-time prizes on the line for the 46 machine and trying to do Coca-Cola Energy well, Richmond Raceway Esports well, Sim Seats also part of that operation based out of Richmond, Virginia, which very conveniently happens to be near some famous racetrack, I think, Brett. But in either case, a solid run for Jimmy to start this off as Reynolds and Kerner continue the battle. Lion sort of in his own world. And then the next big battle that we can find on the racetrack, you slide back to P6. Anthony Burrows and Zach Novak nose to tail. And Brett, you know that Novak doesn't want to be second best to Jimmy again after he finished number 2 out of the 2 Richmond Raceway Esports drivers in last night's NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race. So I think there's a bit of momentum and a bit of motivation for him to try and go up and catch Jimmy.
Yeah, I'd say so. And as Novak, your last year's eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion, you know he's going to try his best to make his way towards the front. And like you said, he doesn't want to be second best for the Richmond Raceway Esports group as well.
That's right. We've got titles on titles and titles amongst that bunch. You've got the defending series champ of the Big Show. You've got the defending ERL champ amongst that team as you take a very good look at that special paint job from Sunoco that has come through the last few weeks, encouraging people to pay for their fuel online via their mobile app. And a big send there to get underneath Colton Salick, who got a little bit tight on the entry into the infield, and that's going to be a tricky place, I think, throughout the evening. The 3 spots that I look at in this course, JP, that turn 1 entry, the horseshoe coming through the international section of the course, the bus stop, and then the chicane over in turn 4. If we're going to see incidents tonight, I think it's going to be in those 4 spaces because they require the most brakes out of any of the spots on this course, and especially with the way these things have to be downshifted, you have to shift in the right spots and hit the right revs to make sure you don't spin the tires and save the rear tires on these cars, and it just makes them very, very tricky to get them around road courses when you need them to behave.
Yeah, and there was a lot of work put into the setup used by all the drivers for tonight, mind you, because a lot of the drivers for the Coke race were talking about in pre-race, they had concerns about the gearing, for example, because they had to shift up just before they hit a chicane, for example. Tons of work was put in to make sure the cars were happy with engines, they didn't overheat, you didn't risk blowing them up, etc. But it's not so easy to do so, again, with that hard braking, especially in the danger zones. We hit upon it at the top of the broadcast with the damage you can get from curbs. But there's also a lot of risk for someone getting punted from behind, especially since in sections like the bus stop, James, drivers were talking about there was low visibility in that section because you were trying to follow wheel to wheel. Same can be said for this final chicane to try and make sure you hit your marks without running over the turtles and damaging the nose.
And the setups for the Esports Racing League provided by McConey's Setup Shop. And you can find them at McConey'sSetupShop.com to come together with all of your iRacing setup needs. They, of course, presenting partners for next week's race at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. We go to St. Louis for the third event of the Esports Racing League. Most everybody in the front of this field has started to spread out. Mulvis has got a 1.5 second lead on Blake Reynolds. You look a little bit further back here and you see an absolute madhouse of cars that starts with Caden Rush in the 40 machine and winds its way all the way back through about 23rd, 24th, 25th or so. Take a good look at that number 40 car of Caden Rush, but you've got some fast ones behind. You got Matt Danson, Donovan Strauss, Braden Boulos, Brandon McKissick, Brian LaPrade, a full-on mix there of both ERL veterans and Pro Series hopefuls.
Yeah, there's lots of drivers in this pack battling. However, they still have a very long time in this 70 minutes of chaos race. So a lot of them are going to be biding their time, waiting to make their moves, saving their tires, and also playing a little bit of pit road strategy as we get further into this race.
Continue to watch all the action here. Blake McCandless up one spot from, or two spots rather, from where he started, and sporting the new partnership from Sim Racing shirts in the number 66 machine. And it's pretty wild to think we've entered a world where you can see the likes of McCandless and Rents Brown, Rents the Fence, and all these famous streamers. Michael Cozy Jr. also part of that group where you want particular phrases and sayings printed on ink that you can wear around and show off to all your friends. Head off to Sim Racing shirts and you'll get a feel for what they might be able to offer you as McCandless continues to race Triffin Davis. Michael Finlayson is there in the mix as well in the number 41 machine. So good stuff all the way around between these three, JP, and fun battles to watch here right around 20.
Yeah, and you've seen part of the reason McCandless lost so much momentum in that section was there was the checkup with a bit of contact. LaPrade running over the back end of some of the cars in front. It's a little bit dangerous, though, as Davis nearly missed the corner. McCandless trying to hold on to his spot, but he just doesn't have that preferred line. And now Finlayson just tries to send it off to the moon. That on top of things in the International Horseshoe. But to get back towards the discussion in terms of the streaming conversation, and a lot of drivers and a lot of fans follow them because of their relatability, the ability to learn, and a lot of other reasons. That's why they have so much popularity. The more relatable you are, the more likely you'll be able to build a brand such as that. But one thing to note, though, here, James, look at the left-hand corner. That is the lap counter. There is an estimated 32 to go this time by, meaning the pit window could be wide open in about even 10 laps from now to see who elects to try and go for an undercut and who tries to stretch it out, because the undercut worked in small groupings, James, to gain a spot or two. The overcut worked if you were struggling on your first run and felt like you were more comfortable with a rubbered-in racetrack.
We have an estimated 38 laps in tonight's race, and you can keep track of both the laps that we're on and the time that we've covered and have remaining on your screen. Top left, you can see the lap counter. Bottom and center, you can see the time counter. So between those two, you'll get a sense of how far these drivers have gone and how much longer they have left to race. Like we said at the beginning of the broadcast, fuel window is about 19 to 22 laps, and if you're short putting, JP, that means that the window opens up about lap 16 or so. So you've got a little bit of time, I think, before drivers are going to come in, but I don't see much point in trying to pit it. I think this is a one pit stop race. The question is where you make that stop and what's best. Maybe about a 6 or 7 lap window that you're working with at the end of all of this to try and find your place, and within there, very fine margins between the undercut and the overcut to get the right balance. And I think we'll just have to wait and see who pulls off the strategy best. It very much, I think, feels like a wait and see type of game.
Well, the reason that it's a one stop essentially compared to the two stop for the Coke race, where the benefit was more so on the tires and low fueling the car, compared to going to the end of the fuel stint, was it was 45 laps. You would lose a lot of time trying to save a couple laps of gas to make sure you get to that mark on just one stop overall on the racetrack, especially since there's already 3 seconds of fall off and we're only on lap 7 of the race. That's how much tire wear there is, with the drivers having to send it in so hard into the flat corners in the infield and how much speed they carry in the super speedway part of the racetrack. It's so difficult to try and balance that wear throughout the night, and several drivers for that reason struggled throughout the evening to the point they were looking for comfortability last night. It has to be the same case for a lot of these drivers who are looking fairly sporty, but also at the same time don't want to melt off their tires for the final half of the run to get to that one stop for the fuel.
You don't want to melt off those tires. You have to be careful, especially with the torque curve. We talked about it before we came on air, but that especially with this setup, the torque curve really comes in the high RPMs, and it's a little bit tricky to get the car going up to about maybe 6,000, 6,500 RPM. But once you get there, there's all kinds of power available. That also means you have to be very careful into how you roll back into the throttle on corner exit, because it's just as easy to spin yourself out as it is to gain a tenth or two on corner exit in some of the places on this racetrack.
Yeah, most definitely. And I don't know if you guys caught it right there. Zach Novak missed the last turn number 14, exiting that NASCAR chicane. So pretty interesting to see he missed that. However, he is running that P4 position just ahead of Burrows. He got around him about a lap or so ago. Just curious as to if his tires are starting to fade, might be locking up the brakes a little bit still early in this race.
Also, for those of you who are Nathan Lyon fans, Lyon ran out of internet more than anything else as we take a look and see what happened with Zach Novak here going into that last chicane. But Lyon losing the internet connection on his number 6 machine for Roush Fenway Racing and has disconnected from the field. So a tough break for the driver of the number 6 machine as Novak continues to circle around this racetrack. And we take a look, see what happened and how wild it was. And you can see it there, JP. He just sort of locked the brakes up a bit there. And that's the last thing you want to do. There's a certain threshold that you really want to hit, but it is a narrow window to get it right. If you end up going over it just a little bit, you'll lock up the way that Novak just did and end up in trouble.
Yeah, and that's part of the issue whenever I try on the road courses is it just is, again, so difficult to wheel these machines, especially off, say, a stiffer suspension. Any mistake under braking and any bobble can just send you around with this racetrack. It can just be that challenging here. It's just impressive. Again, to see how the top drivers have been able to stick it on the racetrack and not lose their grip throughout this run. And how comfortable up the front, mind you, Jimmy Mullis has been, where he has been the quickest car on the track, where he's ran away by up to 7/10 a second. Novak the second quickest on the racetrack. That's allowed them to try and gain some of the time they have from P1 for Mullis and for P4 for Novak, where it's a +6.
It's a very clear group of about 3 or 4 drivers who have the pace to win this. Mullis put a 53.1 in last lap by. Reynolds was at a 53.8. Kerner a 53.5. But those are the only ones besides Novak in that group. Everybody else running 154 or slower. So plenty of work, I think, to be done if they want to try and catch Jimmy Mullis, who is about, call it, 8 seconds up the road from his teammate Zach Novak. A little bit further back in the field, some battles to note as we carry on through TobyChristie.com. 70 minutes of chaos at Daytona. You're right on board with Yusuf Ghali in the 54 machine. He's in a good one with Alec Martinez. Just a little bit further up the road, Colton Salick and Connor Horn are in a good battle of their own. Same can be said for Caden Rush and Donovan Strauss. But if you roll a little bit further back, you've got the big group here. Starting with Ethan Lane, who is a Pro Series veteran from a year ago, racing another Pro Series hopeful out of the Burton Kligerman Esports stable, Brian LeBron in the 19 machine, trying to make his move on Ethan Lane and jump up into P16. But those two are in the mix. Blake McCandless is right there in the 18 machine. We've got AJ Stravano just a little bit further back of this group. Michael Finlayson is there. And some fast names, some powerful names, Brett, and some names that if you've been around the community, you've seen them race, and you probably lost a race to them because they're all pretty quick and pretty impressive in their own right.
Yeah, certainly. Some of these drivers I've ran up against in the A-Class series races, and they're tough to beat any track you go to, whether you're on a road course as we are here tonight at Daytona, or even an oval. These drivers are very competitive and very quick at their talents.
Keeping an eye here on AJ Schiavato, who runs in the 19th position, trying to run down Ethan Lane and take over the 18th spot. This is right behind that group that we just saw with LaPrade and McCandless, who have both started to scoot away from everybody else in this bunching. Lane's still right there trying to hang on, but LaPrade just got a little bit sideways in the horseshoe. Might open the door up for McCandless to make the charge. He was steadily and slowly climbed his way up through this field, JP, and is up to 17th after starting 21st.
Yeah, just quietly working his way forward to +4, and the main thing, keeping his simracingshirts.com machine nice and clean. Compared to some of the others, there's been near contact and little bits of contact here and there, and it's given them big nicks. Several drivers last night finished with damage. But we're already seeing right in this grouping, all the tires you see on this shot, all of them just went sliding because everyone just had bunches and bunches of wheel hop trying to get up into the oval, similar to what we've seen from the Charlotte Roval with its debut a couple years ago. So far, McCandless doing a really good job tonight, to say the very least, to keep it calm and have fun as he tries to move on forward here.
That's an important point that Justin brings up that I want to touch on for a moment, Brett. Just the presence of wheel hopping, the importance of saving the rear tires at a place like this, and making sure that you don't completely burn them off. How key is that? And when you've got worn rear tires in particular, what does that do to the race car, and how does that change the handling and adversely affect the way your car gets around this place?
Well, keeping the rear tires on these stock cars is crucial, especially on a road course with how much you have to slow down for each and every turn. So if you can preserve those rear tires through methods such as short shifting or being very gentle getting back into the throttle, having the rear tires on allows you to put the power down on the exit of the corner. So drivers have to try different strategies to save those tires, because I believe if you have the rear tires with you towards the end of the race, you're going to be making a hard charge up through the field, maybe towards a podium here at the end.
And I think more importantly, it allows you to stretch out your first run if you so choose. If you think that you can really go all 22 laps and save your tires, then you make it 22 and don't kill the rears off as much, and it allows you to come in later, and then in turn will give you that much more fresh tire to play with when we get to the end of this race, and you need to make a charge, JP. So the benefits both on the front end and the back end of the pit stop if you can save the rears.
Absolutely, and that's going to be something I think that will open up a lot of doors tonight. One thing that was really hit upon when I was talking with Zelensky earlier this afternoon about how that race went was his goal was keep a distance at 5 seconds if you're in, say, groupings such as this or up in the lead group, to try and make sure you don't get overcut or undercut by those drivers in the pit lane. So keep those in mind once we get towards the midway portion of this race and around that lap 20-ish on the left-hand corner of your screen, as these drivers continue to have a ball and just try and, again, sort themselves out, set their tempo, wait for their chances to try and make passes, and pressurize the drivers in front of them if need be, such as Colton Salick, to try and get a pass on someone like Connor Horn once more.
Colton Salick in that great battle with Connor Horn for 6th and 7th. We ride on board with the 99 now. He'll make the move down to the inside and try and stick a nose in alongside the 67, but just not enough room for Salick to make the pass on the top flight computer Chevy Camaro. But now maybe in the International Horseshoe he might have a shot, but Connor Horn taking that wide line that you see, I think, more often with the sports cars here at Daytona, when the 24 hours of Daytona takes to this track every January. But in either case, Brett, that wide line really does set you up nicely for that run to the dogleg, more so than I think you think it will when you take your first few laps around this place.
Definitely, and as we see this great battle shaping up, we still have multiple cars within seconds of one another. For example, that battle for P8 and P9, Tucker Minter and Alec Martinez within about 1 second of one another. these drivers are still looking to conserve their tires and not overly push it, as we're only 12 laps into this one. I know we still have about 45 to 47 minutes left in this race, but for those drivers that are trying to stretch it, or those drivers trying to short pit, all these different and varying strategies are going to be seen here on screen within the next, I'd say, 4 or 5 laps.
We might see some folks coming early, but I would argue 16 is probably the window that you're looking at if you want to come in and do this right, as Horn and Salek continue to just ride nose to tail with one another at the World Center of Racing. That's your best battle at the high end of the leaderboard at this time. Not the only one, of course. A good one just behind this group. Tucker Minter and Alec Martinez also fighting well. And then you've got Caden Rush and Donovan Strauss and Matt Danson together. That's 11th, 12th, and 13th. Also fighting for position 2. We'll keep our eyes here on the 67 machine of Connor Horn as he continues to try and run off the front of Colton Salek, and maybe keep a watchful eye on Tucker Minter and Alec Martinez, who have grown closer as Horn and Salek have separated themselves. Jacob.
Yeah, and that's in part because you see it on screen as you were discussing that mistake on the curbing. Too much of it was the key point for Salek that lost him so much time and allowed Horn to pull away. But give credit to both these drivers. They're strong in their talents in their different ways. Connor Horn, I've seen him be able to dominate in various different fixed and open series in his competitions amongst the leagues. Someone that was also, at one point, last year specifically in the Road to Pro standings, a top 50 driver in that fight to try and move on to the top 20 at some points in that machine. Compare that to Colton Salek, a very popular driver amongst the service as well, known for being an entertaining person to race against, strong driver for HBM's program, one of its strong Road to Pro candidates for the mid-tier splits this season. Both of these drivers have a lot of talent amongst them to try and move up to the rankings, to say the very least, James. And both of them have been having some pretty nice races so far, although I should say for Salek has been losing time throughout this run compared to Connor Horn, who has gained 6 spots.
Connor Horn has made one of the best charges amongst the drivers in the top 10. The only other driver to match it at gain 6 spots, the 90 machine of Zach Novak for Richmond Raceway ESports. So good stuff between the 90 and the 67. Tucker Minter's also made a similar charge. He's up 6 spots from where he started. Began tonight in 14th, currently runs in the 8th position. So good runs for those three at the moment. Caden Rush and Donovan Strauss also picking up spots. And then how about Triffin Davis, 29th to 15th, and the car has beat all the pieces, JP, but plenty of elbow and muscle moves that he's made to get up, but it's worked. He's gained more spots than anybody else in the field.
Yes, indeed, and nice and clean from the back of the field, but one thing to know, right at the end of this front stretch, Eddie Kerner did something I think we weren't quite expecting, James. He pit very early. Just elected to come in for 4 fresh tires and fuel. So we'll have to see how this works out. And we talked about the tire fall off. Wonder if he's thinking about trying to play this differently than the others. Maybe split the race into thirds like the Coke race compared to expecting drivers to try and stretch to the one-stopper.
It was so tight at the end of it all, and that might be Kerner's game plan here because he pitted just a bit too early, I think, to make it on one more stop so far as fuel goes. So we'll see what Kerner can or can't do. Nearly gets into Brian LaPrade there, but good work from the 21 machine to get around LaPrade, who lets the 21 car go. And Brett, your thoughts on a 2-stop race versus a 1-stop race, and what the pros and cons of each strategy would be here at the Daytona Road Course?
Well, I think if you're going to do a 2-stop, then you need to take advantage of your tires. I know I've been talking about conserving them and saving them. However, if you're going to do that 2-stop, you're going to have that set of tires in your back pocket. So might as well push the car a little bit harder compared to those guys that are going to do the 1-stop. They're going to save time by not having to make that second pit stop. However, they are going to be feeling it at the end of 70 minutes with their tires worn out, trying to hang on to these heavy stock cars around all 14 turns at Daytona.
And one thing that just came down from race control, and this may just burn Eddie Kerner, it was right after he made the pit stop. There is going to be a competition caution, guys, at the halfway point of the race, about 35 minutes or so to go in this event. That may have just blew Kerner's strategy a bit out the window, because this allows everybody then to have a free pit stop and then be able to make it on fuel without having to come in the rest of the stint and force Kerner essentially to either stay out on much older tires, James, or lose all the track position. He's back in P15 after his pit stop.
We'll see how that pans out for Eddie Kerner, but in the meantime, we're going to take a moment and bring you a word from some of our partners of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSuits. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more action from the road course at Daytona International Speedway here on Podium Esports coverage of the Esports Racing League.
At McConey Setup Shop, we offer custom-built setups for any asphalt oval car. Prices starting at just $5. Weekly setups available for all Legends, late models, modifieds, and NASCAR trucks, Xfinity, and Cup cars. Do you need one-on-one driver coaching? We've got you covered. Visit www.McConeySetupShop.com and find yourself in Victory Lane. McConey Setup Shop, handling all your setup needs so you don't have to.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the Esports Racing League. TobyChristie.com, 70 minutes of chaos for the road course at Daytona International Speedway, which naturally is brought to you by TobyChristie.com. Toby Christie's been a fan of cars going in circles since 1993 and has been a passionate member of the NASCAR Media Corps since 2007. He's also the co-host of the Final Lap Weekly NASCAR podcast, which is the longest-running NASCAR podcast of all time. Toby is also a National Motorsports Press Association award-winning writer. And for more information, you can visit his website at www.tobychristie.com. Jimmy Mullis is going to lead this field most likely to the competition caution with 40 minutes to go. Might well be here when he crosses the stripe. We've just crossed the 40-minute mark here on our clock, so I would expect momentarily to see the yellow flag come out, JP, and we'll get a sense of what will happen under this competition yellow.
And I think this is why we've seen, after that announcement, so many drivers elected to try and pit afterwards, only for 1 or 2 laps. So it's the 40th total minute. We're now hearing from race control the exact clarification being given to the drivers. But for drivers like Ethan Lane, Jose Solis Jr., Kevin Brown, if they play it right here, James, there's a chance they might be able to be then in turn be the leaders. If they time it out right with when the competition yellow comes out, this can really shake up now the strategy for this entire race. For others like Eddie Kerner, for others, they need to push right now if they want any chance to keep the track position they have right now. While others, they just want to hold on to it, like Anthony Burrows, who has been losing time to Connor Horn. You've seen this battle for 4th.
So Kerner's going to have to push. With that clarification, that means that the yellow flag is going to come out with about 30 minutes to go. So that's when we can expect to see the comp yellow. So about 10 minutes from now, and Kerner's going to absolutely have to just blitz this, no doubt about it, as we ride with Connor Horn, who currently sits in the 5th position, just ahead of Colton Save, like a little bit further back on the road, and right behind Anthony Burrows in the 29 machine, who currently holds the 4th position. Right?
Yeah, this competition caution coming out here around the 40-minute mark. I would say that's one of the worst things for Jimmy Mullis. He has roughly a 4-second gap over position 2 driver of Blake Reynolds. So for a competition caution to come out, that's going to change a lot of these drivers' strategies and most importantly, affect that gap that Jimmy Mullis has built up over the course of this race.
About 4 seconds back to Blake Reynolds, about 8 seconds, 9 seconds back to Zach Novak of the 90 machine, who sits in third. And then you've got Burrows and Horn nose to tail for fourth and fifth. We'll see if Horn is able to pull a move on Burrows. He got a good run out of that final chicane. He goes underneath the 29 across the start finish line, and I don't think there's going to be much of a battle. Burrows will cede the spot. Horn will jump up into fourth. And all eyes now turn to Colton Salick and Alec Martinez, just a little bit further back, who now represent the best battle at the front end of this field.
Now the interesting thing is here, though, if you're saying Alec Martinez, who's been trying to reel in Salick, mind you, for about 5, 6, 7 laps, do you try and play the strategy card and come down and only put a couple laps on your tires in total by the time you get the yellow, then cycle up in front? Or do you try and wait until the caution flag? That's got to be the telling sign. On top of that, you have drivers like Salick on top of that saying, he needs to be better, and I will be better, and apologizing, holding up the 18 machine right now in the middle of these corners. This is actually slowing both of them up right now in the infield by a couple tenths or so per corner.
You offered up an interesting point on strategy there, JP, because I think it definitely is going to be worth it for somebody a little bit further back in this field. I would say from about 20th on back, why not take the gamble and get the track position if, in fact, you can come in maybe the lap before, 2 laps before we get that competition caution, and then you stay out, you take the wave around once we get the yellow flag, and that'll put you right at the front of the field as Martinez goes underneath Salick to take over P6. But somebody's going to try it, and maybe somebody like Justin Botello, very conveniently popping up on your screens now. The Splash & Go Graphics Toyota Camry currently running in 27th, and I'll admit, Brett, I'm a little surprised we haven't seen any of the Jabo flag emotes in chat. One of the most popular drivers in the stream, but now we get the yellow flag. So here's the competition caution that will slow everybody down and bring this field all the way back together, Brett.
Yeah, I'm hearing some chatter over the race channel. A lot of these drivers are unhappy with the competition caution, while those further back in the field, it may be helping them, all playing into how they're planning this race and what's going through their mind. But like I said, some drivers not too happy with this competition caution coming in on time mark number 40.
Also hearing that the 18 machine spun around Justin Prince.
Yeah, just after the caution, I think was trying to figure out what was going on and just spun it around in turn 1. Think he's going to be able to maybe keep his track position, but we'll take a look at this. This is just as the cop yellow comes out, had already been let by this lap by Salick after his mistakes in the infield. But as they're starting to get around the line, make sure they get across the stripe, make sure they're in their scored positions. Just seems to just lose it right in the middle of the corner, almost like trying to make sure of his gauges, his pit settings, etc. Could be right about here. He just realizes, oh, there's a corner here just, it seems, and bye-bye.
Blitzes it down there into 1 and makes it tricky, but that's also one of the hardest braking zones on this circuit, Brett. It is so tricky to come off of the banking in that tri-oval, come onto flat racetrack while turning and get the car slowed down enough to get into that infield section of the road course. And it doesn't matter what kind of car it is. This is a tricky turn. If you've got all that power of one of the GTLMs, the Daytona prototypes that you see racing in the 24 Hours of Daytona, those cars have just as much trouble as these stock cars getting down into here. So it's not necessarily a problem unique to the Camrys and the Camaros and all. It's just a really tough corner on this racetrack outright.
Yeah, and we talked about it early on in the broadcast about these braking zones. Now the drivers are carrying less speed into that first turn than, say, if they were on the old configuration of the Daytona road course. However, with turns 13 and 14, that final chicane coming out of the NASCAR turn 4, it's slowing the speeds down, but certainly not taken away from how much brakes are used to enter turn 1, get these cars slowed down, and get them back under for the exit of that first turn.
And now the pit strategy. The pit strategy, the pit strategy, the pit strategy. What do you do, Justin Prince, if you are in this spot?
Well, you obviously come into pit, but the challenging thing is, what do the drivers who already pit do here? Because Lane's now on 5 laps on his tires, so his Junior is about 3 laps. Kroenke might be in the best position to try and pull this off. He's only on a couple laps on the tires. And a couple drivers have already discussed they already had about a gallon or so estimated in their fuel tanks right now to try and make it. So it was close for some of these drivers just as this was happening, James, to even make it to the end of the fuel we're hearing now on the radio. So this is intriguing. This is absolutely intriguing because we did reach that lap 20 at this comp yellow.
We did indeed, and it's going to allow these drivers to stretch out this fuel run by maybe about a lap or two. Not that it's going to matter all that much unless you decide to stay out. So, Brett, what are the chances that we see Eddie Kerner stay out or maybe try and pull something crazy or maybe go for 2 tires on this pit stop?
I definitely think we may see some drivers such as Kerner go with a 2-tire strategy, try to make up some track position. We've seen this entire race, Molis has been out front. He's going to be tough to beat no matter what, no matter where he comes off pit road. But I do believe the only way to maybe slow down his advantage and his drive through the field is by taking 2 tires and getting off pit road as soon as possible to get that track position and hopefully maintain it up front.
So here they come. It is Jimmy Mullis who is in with Blake Reynolds. Zach Novak comes in on pit road. Connor Horn is probably going to lead his way down, and they're all going to pile in here. Justin Prince, and we're going to see who decides to follow the textbook strategy in the chalk and who decides to go crazy with it.
Well, at the very least, I think you have to come down to make sure you can make it on the fuel at the very least. Here's the downside, too, is because of how the timing can be in some of the pit roads here, this is something you see at Michigan, some of the road courses, etc., depending on where the pace truck is. A couple drivers got a free pit stop before these machines. The downside for those cars is they're at the end of the racetrack still, so they won't be able to benefit from it. Either way, this is going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky to see how this all plays out as everyone's going to be bunched back up again, and the aggression may be very high here. This allows a lot of drivers, though, a chance to get back in the game, James. That wouldn't be in the conversation if there wasn't a yellow. I have to say that.
The interesting one to me, the one who I noticed that was very aggressive in that first run, not afraid to throw some elbows out and move some people if he needed to. Triffin Davis in that 96 machine, the Toyota Camry, picked up a lot of damage on the front end, which he spent some time down pit road repairing. But Davis was one in the middle of the pack who was not afraid to make things work. And maybe not surprisingly, he's also the driver who's gained the most spots in this race. So if you happen to be in the middle of the pack, Brett, what's your strategy here in the restart? And are you really trying to move a few people to get a few spots, knowing how tightly bunched this field is and how it might be the only shot some of these drivers have to make a pass like that? Or are you holding your own and maybe waiting for someone else to make mistakes so you can pass them that way instead?
Well, I'd say as we're having a restart here halfway through this event, you're going to need to take every opportunity you see for those drivers further back in the field. That may mean giving someone the bumper, moving on right past them, but you got to strike while all these cars are bunched up together, because once they start getting spread out, you're going to have to set a pace, get in a rhythm, and just hope some drivers may burn their stuff up early. That way you can last there by the end of the race.
As it will be Blake Reynolds who jumped ahead of Jimmy Mullis and Zach Novak as well. It'll be Reynolds, Novak, and Mullis who are going to be the leaders on this restart. When we do get going, we'll have a few cars take the wave around here. We'll see if we get the one to go this time by, or if we're in for another lap of yellow flag pacing before we go back racing at the World Center of Racing, where as it stands, it looks like Ryan LaPrade would be the one in line for the wave around, and the lights are indeed off the pace car. So, well, they were off the pace car, and then we got a delay. So, we're going to go, I would suspect, for 2 more laps under the yellow flag, JP, and that's going to bunch everybody up, and I think make the end even more interesting because it's going to bring us down to about, call it 24, 23 minutes, I think, before we get to the green flag.
Give or take, yes. It makes it a little bit more calmer, I think, for the fuel as long as you hold the clutch in and save the fuel during the pace laps. The term I heard during the real world broadcast especially is key here. One pace lap equals 2 green flag laps essentially on the fuel you have to think about. So you can save a lot of gas and not burn as much as you would going full speed around this racetrack. It's just a matter of trying to make sure everything's right with scoring, try and sort things out as all these drivers try and figure out where they're supposed to be here with this caution and who's going to be able to benefit how in this situation. Should note that a lot of that Jimmy Mullis has now been cycled back to the front for now. After everything is all said and done, everything, like we said, is still being sorted on where these cars will go.
While we have a moment under the yellow flag, we'll take a moment to bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually on Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and more. Blake Reynolds, your leader over Zach Novak. Jimmy Mullis rides in P3. Anthony Burrows has climbed to 4th, and 5th is the 99 of Colton Salek. Yusuf Ghali runs in the 6th position. 7th is Eddie Kerner. 8th belongs to the 51 of Donovan Strauss. Alec Martinez runs in 9th, and 10th, JP, belongs to Caden Rush.
Should note that Mullis had to pull over to the side of the racetrack due to a steering wheel issue. His back going, though, he had an issue during the Coke race where his steering wheel went out several times and told drivers about that post-race. That's why he's now moving back up to the field. Right now, though, in 11th spot last time at the stripe was Connor Horn, Matt Danson 12th, McCandless in 13th, Davis, Minter, Hogan, Brown, Solis Jr., DeWeese, and McKissick round out your top 20. Shout out to the 8 Machine. Plus 20, the McKissick fan base, the DeWeese fan base, rather, is going to be losing their minds after that one.
Jabo runs in 21st. Justin Patello, 22nd is Nick Miller. Alex Bell rides in 23rd, and 24th is Eli Hinton. AJ Stravato holds the 25th position. 26th belongs to Adam de Blasio. Lucas Graham runs in 27th. 28th is Ryan Kendrick. 29th to Brian LaPrade, and Presley Sora runs in 30th.
Evan Rice, 31st. Rabideau is in 32nd. Gardner in 33rd. Lane, one of the top prospects for Road to Pro a couple years ago, is in 34th. John Midget, 35th. All the way from the very back of the field, Chris Rabbo, 36th. Wells, the last driver of the lead lap, in 37th. Cronke blew an engine during the caution flag. He's now done. McKinney will now jump him to 38th. The last driver is currently on the pylon who started. Phillips, Finlayson, Bullows, McCauley, and Lyon are your drivers who started this race.
And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. We'll take another moment to step aside, but we'll come back with more action from Toby Christie's 70 Minutes of Chaos at Daytona. You're watching Podium Esports coverage of the Esports Racing League for the World Center of Racing. Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the TobyChristie.com 70 Minutes of Chaos at Daytona. Part of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSpeed's round number 2 of their season. And we now chat with our in-race reporter, Blake McCandless, who has had a pretty busy day already. And Blake, how's the car feeling and what have you learned in the first half of this race?
Our simracingshirts.com Chevy is, handling pretty well. The cooler track conditions was something we weren't expecting. The car's going really a lot faster in the corners than we thought. So it's all about trying not to lock up because it's a lot easier to do that when you're carrying more speed and, just admiring what these guys up front could do because, they have a lot of pace to them and, you know, we were just kind of taking her easy, but now that we're bunched back up, it's going to get pretty crazy here. So just hopefully we can survive all that and get a good finish.
I was about to ask how you think the bunch up here is going to change things. It's a different dynamic compared to most road course races that we see. So what do you expect?
I don't expect it to be pretty. A lot's going on right now. It's definitely the 70 minutes of chaos, and with everything kind of getting bunched up here, and obviously, because of a time race, time just continues to wind down. So, desperation level out here is high. So we're just gonna, go into turn one and hope we all make it, I guess.
Fair enough, Blake. We'll get you back to it. Thanks as always for the time, and best of luck in the second half of tonight's race.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
It's Blake McCandless, driver, the number 166 officially. It's 66 that you see on your screens, but a lot of red and white on that car too. Blake, a native of Raleigh, North Carolina, and a well-noted Carolina Hurricanes fanatic, a Caniac, as they are known. Probably a little bit disappointed about the OT loss to the Bruins a little bit earlier tonight, but I have a feeling he's going to try and make up for that with at least an attempt at victory on the road course at Daytona. Round out the day half and half, as it were. Lights are off on the pace car. Tucker Minter is the one that decided to stay out, and he will lead us to green on 3 lap older tires than everybody else in this field as we go back racing at Daytona. And it's a cleaner restart this time, but here comes Zach Novak to the inside of Blake Reynolds, who will continue to ride that outside lane. They're going to go side by side through the middle of turn 1, and they'll be side by side as they come through the S's to the International Horseshoe, JP.
And they'll also have to deal with lap traffic as Burrow's having to check up and loses a little time on the top line. Clean start up front, but here's the pressure with the strategy. Minter is on 1 lap older tires. The question is, how long can he keep the positioning with drivers like Reynolds, like Novak, like Mullis with pressure? All while drivers like Kerner try and fight Burrows still as this continues to burn the 29 off the jump.
We'll see how wild this gets, but Blake Reynolds has already caught Tucker Minter for the race lead, and he will be all over the rear bumper of the 10 machine as they come out of the infield and into NASCAR turn 1. Can't forget about Zach Novak there too, as Eddie Kerner got sideways coming onto the banking and checked up Anthony Burrows, Donovan Strauss and company. But here comes Blake Reynolds in the 3 machine looking for the move. They'll have the draft. The 10 machine is going to go high. Blake Reynolds is going to stay low. Is Minter going to give him the position headed into the bus stop? The answer is yes. New leader in this race, and it is the Team Deal Esports driver as Zach Novak has to check up. Minter did not get going through the bus stop at all, and that backed up Novak right into the clutches of Jimmy Mullis. Brett Suggs.
Yeah, now we have a 3-car battle for this position number 2. I think it was a smart move by Minter to give Blake Reynolds that lead, save his stuff here. But look, Blake is starting to pull away from the field, and Minter kind of checked up from second on back. So these drivers right on top of one another for position number 2 across the stripe.
And Minter made Jimmy Mullis miss the chicane that last time by, so he had to get the position back. And Minter basically has the Richmond Raceway Esports drivers fighting amongst one another. And I have to believe that Jimmy Mullis is not going to give any easy breaks to the 10 machine now, side by side through the S's into the International Horseshoe. And all of a sudden, here comes Eddie Kerner to the inside of the 46. Where did the 21 come from on this restart? He'll be side by side with Mullis as Minter continues to hold the field back, JP.
And you see on the screen, this is the mistake right here near contact between them and Minter. That is a time penalty you can get right there. Mullis elects to take it right there. Go back single file at that moment. The problem is now, he's trying to go right for the dive right this moment behind Blake Reynolds. Gives him the door, and the 10 would push off into the grass as Minter's not giving up this spot for second. Check that third.
Minter is not giving these drivers any room whatsoever, and Mullis is going to have to go high, wide, and handsome to clear the 10 machine, but he finally, I think, is going to get it done coming through NASCAR. What a duo contact between the two of them. Minter still not giving up the spot, fighting tooth and nail and clawing his way with the 46, trying to keep to the inside of Mullis. Big sin from the 10 machine. Mullis will have to go side by side through the bus stop, and there goes the 10 machine set. Mullis and the 10 bounce off each other, and Mullis is going to have to stay back. And that rear bumper of the 10 machine is about as wide as it can possibly get right now, Brett Suggs.
Reynolds is loving seeing this in his rearview mirror. He's checking out from the field. Meanwhile, Minter and Mullis battle door to door. Mullis not happy about Minter pushing him off track, missing a turn just a little while ago, and that's stacking up from second all the way as far as 12th to 15th in the field. They're all on top of Minter. He's making his car wide, trying to protect that spot, but some drivers starting to get a little bit antsy here as we have coming up on 16 minutes left in this TobyChristie.com 70 minutes of chaos.
Oh, nearly contact indeed between Zach Novak and Tucker Minter again. And Jimmy Mullis, I have to believe, is going to... Yep, he does. He sends the 10 machine wide. He was just done with it after about 3 or 4 laps. And in fairness, if I'm Jimmy Mullis, I'm not surprised. At that point, you have all sorts of action, and it checked up everybody a little bit behind him. Connor Horn got stuck sideways, but Mullis with the big send on Tucker Minter. He was done riding behind him. JP in the faster car eventually wins out.
And this isn't over yet, though. In the mid-pack now, who has all been bottled up here, they were 2 or 3 wide, going through turns 4 and 5, and trying to feed each other. The Doris Strauss nearly dumped away. How Horn in that fight. We mentioned there was potential for chaos. We're starting to see that potential for chaos right now in this grouping right now with how much physical contact these drivers are willing to have here on these fresher tires.
How wild does it get now that you've got space amongst the front 4, front 5? It's about maybe 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. That group. Donovan Strauss, Connor Horn, Yusuf Gali, Caden Rush, Olin there with Colton Salick, and then a big wild group. Oh, one car way off into the grass. Matt Danson in the 30 machine got sent through the bus stop, so he's going to lose about 10 spots in this field. And just a huge group that starts at, we'll call it Alec Martinez in 11th. But you got Triffin Davis, Tucker Minter, Brandon McKissick, Blake McCandless, Eli Hinton and company all right there trying to figure out who wants to try and run down Salick for that last spot in the top 10 as you see what happened to Matt Danson through the bus stop last time by JP.
Yeah, and you'll see a checkup effect right there already. Apologies over the radio as the Aussie New Zealand-based driver tried to send it a little bit, trying to back off, fit the quarter panel though as Martinez got a little loose. It just took the corner cut as he ran over all those cones, loses them a ton of spots on the racetrack because of that mistake Martinez had, and bottled up everybody, including McCandless again, who has just got involved in an incident in live action too.
Oh, big incident there for Blake McCandless. He got into Triffin Davis, who got sent wide, and that sent everybody around in the corner. 3-4 cars involved as they all split through the middle, trying to see who all was involved in that. We'll see if we can get a replay for you momentarily, but it was wild stuff.
Right there.
McCandless was the first one there who got swept up in it. You'll see the contact there with Triffin Davis. Those two end up going around. McCandless is nowhere to go. 75 of Jose Solis comes in there, and then everybody starts spinning from there on, and there were about 3 or 4 cars that got caught up in that before it all settled out over in the International Horseshoe, JP.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's a chain reaction event from what happened to the bus stop with everyone stacked up. But just unfortunate for Solis Jr. and everybody else. Just no space there. Davis was braking a little bit earlier than I think McCandless expected. Now, lots of engine damage on a lot of those machines. And with the speed you need around here, that's bad news. Also, bad news if you're a Jimmy Mullis fan. Reynolds is leading still by almost 6 seconds with an estimated 8 laps to go. He's going to need a lot, and I mean a lot of pace to catch up to him in that time. He's possibly able to do it, but the problem is I don't know if there's enough time to do it in 15 minutes. Check that 14.
That's going to be the question. It's a 5.5 second gap to Blake Reynolds after Tucker Minter backed up the field, and it's going to be a very tall order, I think, to try and make it happen in that last set of laps. Eddie Kerner and Zach Novak, though, might have a good battle on their hands as Kerner eventually found his way out of trouble via that 2-stop strategy that he was trying to go for before the yellow flag came out. Gained the track position back, but now he has a rearview mirror full of Zach Novak to deal with, Brett.
Yeah, I think one thing we can take into account here, Jimmy Mullis had a 6-second longer of a pit stop than Blake Reynolds that last time. Therefore, you see the deficit. It's about 5.5 seconds back from your leader. Could this be a result of a poor pit stop out of Jimmy?
Hold on, we got more trouble in the horseshoe, guys. Cram in a few hours just got spun around in a massive traffic jam among some of the drivers in that last incident of the horseshoe last lap.
Wild stuff there. It was Justin Patello who got into the 98 of Garrison Hogan, and Cram just locked it up on the brakes. Didn't really do anything to anyone or get moved by anybody, but Kevin Brown had nowhere to go. So Jabo, Cram, and Brown all sideways. Jose Solis and Blake McCandless swept up in another incident. Triffin Davis almost got caught up in that, as you see what happened on your screens there. Drivers just fighting for the same space. And JP, we talked about it throughout this race. If we're going to see incidents, the International Horseshoe tends to be one of those spots.
And part of the bottle up effect is you've seen Solis Jr. there hook up a little bit with the 39 machine that went off in the grass. That stacked them 2-3 wide. I think that's what panicked a lot of the air cars. Lots more time lost there, but no track blockages. We still keep going, as now that pack's broken up for now with all that absolute chaos, to say the very least.
That pack is broken up. Meanwhile, Zach Novak's gotten to the inside of Eddie Kerner in the 21 machine, and Novak will make that pass for second. So you can move the Richmond Raceway Esports driver up into actually the third spot, rather. And Kerner slides back to fourth, but you've got Richmond Raceway Esports now second and third behind Team Dillon Esports Blake Reynolds, who holds the lead. And that's what I think Anthony Alfredo wouldn't necessarily mind. Of course, Alfredo driving for Richard Childress Racing and plenty of ties with TDE and Blake Reynolds and company over the course of this year.
Yep, absolutely, and has had a lot of good performances as well this season. Worked a lot with them as well during some of the Pro Invitationals and became a friends group, so to speak, with some of those co-drivers. But still, though, for many of these drivers, they need to make sure they keep their tires on the track. For the past couple laps or so, everyone just seems to have gone all ramped up and started to try and go all dodgy-bodgy and bumping and banging, when once again, you need to keep the car in one piece if you want to try to win this race. That's why, again, Reynolds has such a big advantage, because everyone spent so much time trying to get around the 10 machine that Reynolds just said, goodbye, I'm going to wave in the back mirror. Oh, well, the lead is still 5.5 seconds, and Minter from all that is still in P11.
I think the simple answer here is that if you're any one of Jimmy Mellis or Zach Novak or Eddie Kerner, Brett Suggs, you're not exactly sending Tucker Minter a Christmas card this year. So now that you've gone through that and you've lost time effectively to a slower car, not really much I think that you can attribute it to otherwise. The fact that Minter was just not as quick as Mellis or Novak or Kerner. But when you lose time like that, how do you mentally regroup and find it within yourself to calm down after all that frustration and get back into a rhythm, get back into the laps that you need to be clicking off in order to go run down the lead?
Well, certainly, as these drivers, their tempers start to arise as they get in heated situations such as what we saw with Minter there. However, they got to take it turn by turn. There's still 10 minutes left in this race. Now, they're not so much focused on reeling in Blake, as though Jimmy still would love to reel him in. He's about 5 seconds off him. However, these drivers are more in a battle for that P2 spot. You got Novak 1 second off Jimmy. Not too far behind him is Eddie Kerner. So these drivers, they're trying to cool down. They're trying to get back into a rhythm, get in the zone, and focus on maximizing their position, other than Blake Reynolds. He's in a different time zone out there, about 5 seconds ahead of the field.
And all of a sudden, a really good battle here from fifth on back. Anthony Burrows, Donovan Strauss, Yusuf Gali, and Connor Horn. Oh, big send there from Gali into Strauss, and Strauss gets set up the racetrack. And now, all of a sudden, it looks like Connor Horn got tripped up as Gali ended up giving the spot back after he got into Strauss. So, Horn gets checked up by both of them, and Strauss maintains the spot after all, but Anthony Burrows gains about a second on that trio, Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed. As well, Connor Horn gains a spot there as Golly lets them on by with all the chaos in this grouping. But I think that's very sportsmanlike, they'll have to say, for the 54 there. The tempers were flaring, obviously, from the contact between him and Donovan Strauss, and gave the spot to him before he even knew that the tempers were flaring from that member of Burton Quickerman Esports and the JGR graphics machine. So everything's now calmed down. We'll see how this all still plays out in this grouping, though, for the time being, as they still try to reel in Burrows, all while the next grouping of Rush, Martinez, Minter, McKissick are right behind them if anything happens in this group again.
A very James Hugh-like move of sportsmanship from Yusuf Gali there. Hugh, one of the bellwethers for sportsmanship on Podium Esports and part of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series that returns to Podium Esports in September. So keep your eyes out for more information on that, as we'll get set to bring you some of the best in road racing on Friday night. So if you like seeing more of our coverage of road racing with stock cars, be prepared. You'll see it with the Porsche GT4 Cayman Club Sport MR. I think I missed the 718 somewhere in there. It's a bit of a word soup name, but most of the pieces we got. As we close in on the final few minutes, we'll take a moment to quiet down ourselves and bring up the audio so you can hear all the sounds of the ERL at the Daytona International Speedway Road Course. Riding on board with Brandon McKissick, one of the veterans of the Esports Racing League's first season back in the spring. He currently is in the 12th position, just behind Tucker Minter in the 10 machine, who stayed out on those older tires and caused so much drama for the Richmond Raceway Esports drivers earlier on in this green flag stint, as these folks continue to work their way around Daytona down to about 5 minutes and change, so not much longer for Blake Reynolds to hang on. And Jimmy Mullis really has not done anything to close the gap down, as there are issues for Braxton DeWeese's machine. But so far as that lead goes, as we see what happened with DeWeese, not much, I think, that's going down between Reynolds and Mullis, JP. That work that Tucker Minter did was all that Jimmy Mullis, I think, could do just to try and get around him, and I think in getting around Tucker, it caused a shot to get to Blake.
You see there on the replay, though, DeWeese just nowhere to go, James. My goodness, Jabo had a mistake in the middle of that final chicane. This is what happened. Ran over the back end of Lucas Cram. Great save by Cram, but Jabo, as he was trying to get back going, he just came right across the racetrack. Nowhere to go for DeWeese, and I believe he collected a third driver as he came across the racetrack, DeWeese did, and pinched him up against the wall. Just absolute calamity in this part of the racetrack in the final few minutes to really shake up the back end of the running order.
A bad night gone to worse for Justin Patello, who's now been involved in 2 incidents in the second half of this race. So this is one I think he'll want to forget, and he'll just try and turn all eyes towards the next event at the Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. We remind you that tonight's broadcast of the Esports Racing League is presented by SimSeats. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality driving simulators, including motion systems, custom fabricated parts, and complete turnkey iRacing packages, all made in the United States of America. Their customer base includes all kinds of drivers, from amateurs to professionals, and their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Don't limit your track time to the weekend. Visit SimSeats.com for more information on how you can get a hold of one of their rigs today. We'll also remind you as we close in on the end of tonight's race that there's plenty of action coming up in the world of Podium Esports next week. It will kick off on Sunday night with the GameWorks Racing League from Bristol Motor Speedway. That'll come your way on Podium Esports' regular home at twitch.tv/Podium Esports at 8 p.m. Eastern Time this Sunday, August 16th. Then it's the Sim 500 Trans Service Cup Series EJ O'Rourke Photography 200 at Dover International Speedway next Monday night, August 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. Before the Esports Racing League comes back next Wednesday night with the McConey Setup Shops 130K at the Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. We'll see that broadcast here on the ERL Twitch channel and wherever you might be watching us at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Before we follow that back-to-back with the Cars Esports Tour from Martinsville Speedway, and that will go live around 9 p.m. Eastern, right after the Esports Racing League wraps up next Wednesday night. That will go live to cap off the doubleheader on Wednesday evening on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. Not much longer to go for Blake Reynolds, but still a few good battles amongst the front few cars, namely Yusuf Ghali and Donovan Strauss, who have been nose to tail with one another as we ride on board with the 51 machine and see maybe he might be able to get back around the 54 after they made contact over in NASCAR 1 just a bit ago, Brett.
Yeah, and if we look just right behind him, Caden Rush is only half a second off. He's in this battle as well. So don't factor out Caden. He's been saving his equipment. Now we have 2 minutes left in this thing. He is looking to get around these drivers and maybe pick up a few more positions if he can keep it clean.
Potentially, there's a big move from Rush to the inside of Donovan Strauss over in the West Horseshoe, and he just sort of muscled his way underneath the 51, but the 51 will have that preferred lane to the inside coming into NASCAR 1. He takes full advantage of it with that big send underneath the 40 machine to get the spot back and maintain it as they climb the banking back up onto NASCAR 1 and 2. In the meantime, though, JP, that's allowed Yusuf Ghali to jump out ahead of these drivers by almost a second with about a minute and change left in tonight's race.
And the gap just right there shows how important it is how you have to time the pass. You can't just, again, send it up the bottom side, hope it sticks, and then go from there. If you don't play it out right, you're going to lose time. The best passing zones this track, for that reason, again, were the bus stop and the International Horseshoe, especially tonight, because if you can get the draft down in the speedway section, you can make that pass there. If you're stronger in the infield section, you can make the pass up the International Horseshoe, and by the corner exit, you won't lose too much time as everyone has to roll down to a near standstill anyway. So it's just, again, about the timing throughout the night, and for some of these drivers, it just didn't work out that timing. For others, they were able to take advantage of said timing to move up the field, like Connor Horn, who is about 49 seconds away or so from his first top 5 in his first start of the season.
Blake Reynolds, on the other hand, is about a minute or so away from his first victory of the Esports Racing League season presented by SimSeeds. He's taking the white flag and is off in the West Horseshoe for the final time. And it was an easy drive, Brett, after he got cleared Jimmy Mullis and Mullis had the fight with Tucker Minter and company. That fight with the 10 machine opened up a huge gap that Reynolds has taken full advantage of, and he's been clean, consistent, and hasn't looked back since.
Yeah, Blake really needs to send a thank you card to Tucker Minter, allowing him to open up that gap on the rest of the field. If it wasn't for all the boggling in the top 5 between Minter and Mullis and Novak, I don't believe Blake would have extended this lead to as great of a 5-second gap as he's created. I think Mullis would have had something for Reynolds, even Novak, as he's still hot on the tail of Mullis. But thank you cards are due to Minter from Reynolds.
All about Blake Reynolds here. The last one in the ERL in the spring at Texas. There was that chaotic finish between Brandon McKissick and Brian LaPrade, where McKissick turned LaPrade coming out of turn 4. He couldn't get going, and Blake Reynolds leapfrogged both of them to get the victory out from under their noses. Tonight, he is the man who dominates the second half of this race, swerves across the line to celebrate his victory, and the TobyChristie.com 70 minutes of chaos at Daytona, round number 2 of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSpeeds for the fall of 2020 goes to the number 3 Coca-Cola Chevy Camaro for Team Dillon Esports. Mullis is second, Novak third, Kerner fourth, Connor Horn the top 5 as some of these last few cars come through the end of their laps and finish off the race tonight. JP, and a wild one, chaotic one, fittingly comes to a close.
Especially the second half of the race, absolutely, but Good job by Reynolds to take advantage of the timing and to get the pass done and to win that race tonight. Take advantage of everyone getting bought up behind. If that didn't happen, especially with the 10 machine, who knows? We may have been seeing a back and forth scrap until the final laps if Reynolds could hold off Moas with that opportunity. What a race, to say the very least.
A wild race indeed. A few more drivers here coming across the start-finish line and getting themselves sorted out here. John Midget and I think Midget and Rabideau might be the last two to finish off tonight's race. We see a few more folks coming across the start-finish line, but celebrations around for Blake Reynolds in the 3 machine. A very sound and solid race. He was top 5 all night long, to be fair, Brent. So a well-deserved victory for the 3 car, who made it stick in the second half and got it done when he needed to get it done on the road course, no less.
Yeah, there's no taking away or discrediting his win he's claimed here tonight. He had a great pit stop. He executed properly both on and off the pit road. Then once he got back on the track, he made the right moves, put himself in the precise position to hold this lead out front and pull away from the pack.
All about Blake Reynolds tonight in that 3 cars. We take a look at the full field rundown and tell you where your favorite driver finished. It was Reynolds who beat Jimmy Mullish by about 5 seconds at the end of the night. Zach Novak makes it a podium sweep for Richmond Raceway Esports in the 2nd and 3rd spots. Eddie Kerner came home in 4th. 5th was the 67 of Connor Horn. Anthony Burrows finished in the 6th position. 7th went to Yusuf Galley. Donovan Strauss finished 8th. 9th was the 40 of Caden Rush. And Tucker Minter in that 10 car finished in 10th, JP.
Alec Martinez in 11th spot, right in front of his teammate as well, and Brandon McKissick, while Matt Danson survived for P13. P14 went to Colin Salick. Eli Hinton 15th. LaPrade came home in 16th. 17th spot goes to Gardner. From 31st to 18th for Evan Rice. Presley Sora quietly in 19th spot from 32nd. And Adam DeBlasio rounded out your top 20.
21st tonight was Blaze McKinney. Garrison Hogan finished in 22nd. 23rd was the 166 of Blake McCandless, and AJ Stravato finished in 24th. 25th was the 44 of Lucas Cram. Jose Celis Jr. finished in 26th. 27th belongs to Chris Rabel. Kevin Brown finished in 28th. 29th was Alex Bell. And Jabo Justin Pacello rounded out the top 30.
31st spot tonight on the racetrack went to Ryan Kendrick from 49th overall on the qualifying pylon to Waits to 32nd, Davis 33rd, while Midget crashed on his own but still finished in 34th despite a hard hit that nearly put him a lap down in the final chicane on the racetrack. 4 laps down for Rabideau, still finished the race without a front clip. Nick Miller 5 laps down tonight. Ethan Lane, technical issues, finished in 37th. Wells in 38th, Crockett 39th. Phillips rounded out the top 40 in this race. Rest of the field here, James, was Finlayson, Bulos, McCauley, and Lyon, who also DNF'd tonight.
And that concludes your full field rundown. Now you know where your favorite driver finished, and now we have the opportunity to bring in the driver from Team Dillon Esports. Blake Reynolds brings the Coca-Cola Chevy Camaro to victory line tonight on the road course at the World Center of Racing. And Blake, first and foremost, did you have any idea that your pass on Tucker Minter after the restart would be so pivotal in determining how this race played out?
No, I did not. I thought Jimmy and the way Zach was on that restart, I thought Zach would probably take it 3 into turn 1, but Tucker did a great job holding everyone off, it looked like. And I was able to get him on a straightaway, luckily. He had a little bit of damage, but everyone else couldn't seem to get by him, and I was really surprised considering how fast Jimmy and Zach were. So I know I didn't earn this win. Jimmy definitely had the pace on me, but I will take it.
That was part of the next question I was going to ask, because when you got your victory at Texas in the ERL in the spring, you definitely snuck that one at the end. And if what you just said is any indication, I sort of get the sense that you don't necessarily feel like you were the best car here tonight. So is there something still left to prove so far as you're concerned? Or are you hungry to have a race where you are the dominant car and you go out and run the whole thing start to finish and get the checkered flag? Or are you just going to take the wins where they come?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the goal. I want to be able to do that one day. I can't seem to do it here. Jimmy and Zach are really good in the fixed stuff. And just overall, they're either just as good, if not better, as me. So I I don't know. I think this is my second win. I might have gotten a late season win last year. I can't remember, but that win at Texas, yeah. And again, I didn't really feel like I earned that one. I definitely didn't. This one, it can be half and half. I drove a great race. I felt like the Coke race last night really gave me a lot of confidence in this track. And going into the Coke race last night, I was awful. I was just so far off the pace. And then for the pace of where our set was, I finished 15th, which was really solid for us. And then here tonight, I show up, I qualify third, and I get the win after a caution helps me.
So you take it in stride, and we head to Gateway, Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway up next. That's a track that has long been chucked about in NASCAR circles. It's a place that would be interesting to see the Cup cars go to, and in the ERL, we're going to see them take to Gateway. So initial thoughts on that track in St. Louis and what we think we can expect next Wednesday night.
Well, I've never raced a Cup car there, so I'm not really too sure, but it does sound fun. It's one of those tracks where you have to downshift in 1 and 2, so if we get the set hooked up right, maybe we'll see third gear in 1 and 2, or maybe we'll be fourth gear, who knows. We'll just show up and see our car. Yeah, I've only raced there in trucks and IndyCar, and I think I did a hosted race with the Spec Racer Ford there once, which was fun. So hopefully that experience helps me going in.
Plenty of people to make it happen for you, Blake. Who do you need to thank for tonight's win?
Well, sure thing. Anthony Alfredo, of course, putting on this whole thing, the Esports Racing League. It was a really good season 1, and so far, I mean, first 2 races I think have hit off pretty all right. This one was a little iffy, but of course everything can be fixed with time, so I'm sure the rest of the season will go just fine. And of course I'm on Team Dillon Esports in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Coca-Cola, of course, beneath Apparel, StockX, Sparko Realtree, Austin Dillon. And then I'll go ahead and thank who was in Discord? Blake McCandless, Colton Salick, Justin Vitello. They all kept me company during the race. Give me a few chuckles, so I'll thank them too.
Blake, congratulations on victory number 2 at ERL competition. Thanks as always for the time, and we'll see you in St. Louis next Wednesday night.
All right, thank you, James.
Blake Reynolds P1 this evening. P2 went to Jimmy Molish for Richmond Raceway Esports. The Coke cars come 1-2. We'll talk with the other half of the Coca-Cola Brigade of the ERL is our Justin Prince.
Thank you very much. And Jimmy, first things first here, dominant to start off the race. Then the caution flag came out. How were you feeling about how this race broke down tonight?
I wouldn't say frustrated or anything. Blake just simply outdrove me there in that second run. But overall, it was a fun race. It did kind of stink, getting all those caution laps. And I honestly forgot we were going to have cautions tonight. But I guess it mixed it up a little bit, which, is always good. But overall, it was an okay night. My wheel actually, I know I was mentioning it to you last night. It was doing the same thing, if not worse. So right now, my focus is trying to figure out a way to, get me a new wheel, because this is not good.
Yeah, how difficult was it to try and get around a track like this with essentially a broken wheel? I think you actually pulled over at one point during the race to try and fix the wheel.
Yeah, under that caution, I pulled over probably 3 or 4 times trying to reset it, and every time I think it actually made it worse, unfortunately. So I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, it was extremely difficult. It's honestly terrifying, because you don't want to wreck, and you're trying to make lap time. I was definitely trying my best to try and catch Blake, and I felt like I was kind of matching his times every other lap, but there was a lot of laps where going into the chicane or going into the tight corners on the infield, the wheel would just try to turn a direction that I didn't need it to on its own, and I would have to, fight it and give up some time. So it's frustrating, but to salvage a P2 is definitely good points tonight, and excited for next week.
Yeah, next week is at a track you normally don't see a Cup cars going to in Worldwide Technology Raceway. Your thoughts on going to the track originally known as Gateway for what's expected to be an exciting race?
I don't have much experience there, but always look forward to going to new tracks. I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be exciting. I know that place kind of opens up with multiple lanes usually, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Hopefully I have my wheel situation figured out by then, because if not, then I don't even know if I'll be racing. We'll have to see. But I think it'll be a good race. I look forward to it.
Who do you want to thank for the P2 finish tonight?
I was always going to give a thanks to Richmond Raceway ESports, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola Energy, Sunoco, SimSeats, all of our partners. They are huge, and wouldn't be here without them. Thanks as well to JDR Graphics for the great paint schemes as always. Thanks to you guys for putting on the broadcast as always. Look forward to going back and watching it. I'm sure it was a little bit exciting there on that last restart when me and the 10 were kind of getting together. I hate that I sent him off the track like that, but things happen. We were racing hard. It was all in good fun. I hope he takes it that way. But again, thanks to you guys, and hopefully see you guys next week.
Congratulations on the second place finish tonight, Jimmy.
Thank you.
It's Jimmy Mullis and P2 James.
Jimmy Mullis in P2. P3 is Zach Novak, and Zach is with Brett Suggs.
Zach, what an impressive run you set out here tonight. Starting from P10, rallying up to a podium finish. Walk us through how your night went for 70 minutes of chaos.
Well, it went pretty good. Didn't qualify too well. I messed up a few corners on the infield, but I just stuck with it, and I didn't feel like resetting and potentially throwing away a solid lap. So I just went with it and hoped it stuck in the top 10, which it did. And I knew I had a little bit better race pace than that, so I just tried to take advantage of it and get as far up as I could as quickly as possible. And after that caution, I thought I had a legitimate chance to win, especially with the restart I had. I got under Blake there going into one, and he just got a better run off, and then we all kind of got stacked up behind Tucker, and it was a struggle to get by him and then actually chase Blake down. He had so much of a gap already, so unfortunately we just couldn't get past that quick enough and go chase a win. But I'm happy with third. I'm happy with my overall pace. This week I struggled a lot, like I mentioned on social media a lot. I struggled a lot with pace here, and I found a lot over the weekend, and definitely happy to come away with a 10th last night and then a third here. It's been a good week so far.
Well, absolutely. And as we saw throughout this race, as you're making your way up through the field, and then talk about that caution on the time of 40 minutes throughout the race. What was going on in your mind when you had to hit down pit road, and if you're going to go for 2 tires, 4 tires, what influenced you to make your decision down pit road?
Yeah, well, I think the call universally with everybody was 4 tires there, but it just kind of depended when you pit. So obviously we got that call a little late on that we were going to get that competition caution, and so a few people had already pit halfway through that first stint, and my plan from the start was to just stop the race and try as best as I could for that. And once we got that notice for the caution, about halfway through, I was just going to stretch it out as far as possible, pit, and then try and save tires. And if I went 2 or 3 laps, then I'd have to come back in for fresh rubber under that caution. But the plan for me was pretty straightforward the whole race. It didn't really change it up. It honestly helped me because I had to make 1 less stop when the caution came out. So it wasn't as straightforward for some others, but luckily for me, I kind of had a plan, and that caution just fell in my lap.
Well, that's great to hear, to methodically plan how you're going about this race. Now, Zach, next week we head to Worldwide Technology Raceway, formerly known as Gateway, going for 65 laps. What do you think about that track surface, taking the Cup cars there for next week's race?
Well, obviously Gateway's pretty new to the Cup cars. I don't think they've ever raced there in person, so that's the beauty of iRacing. We can take cars that never race there. in person and then take them and have a race on there in the sim, but it's going to definitely be different, just like this race was. A lot of curveballs being thrown at us, so who knows how that's going to play out. I think Gateway has a few line options through 1, and then 3 and 4 is pretty straightforward on the bottom, from what I remember at least. So should be fun though. Really excited to be in this league and be able to contend for race wins and whatnot. So hopefully we don't have any power outages or anything last night or next week, sorry, that happened last week, and maybe contend for a win at Gateway.
Well, Zach, we'd love to see you make a strong drive for next week's race at Gateway. We know you have a lot of supporters and fans who make this all possible. Tell us who you have on your team.
Yeah, just got to thank everybody at Richmond Raceway ESports, everybody at Sunoco. If you're going to get gas and you near Sunoco gas station, make sure to use that Sunoco mobile app. It'll help you pay fast, pay safe, and pay mobile. So it's an easy way to pay for your gas, and I recommend everybody uses it if they need to get in and out really fast. So thanks to Sunoco, Sim Seats, Coca-Cola Energy, like I said, Richmond Raceway, and everybody that runs that deal over there. They're huge supporters of mine and Jimmy's, and nights like tonight and last night are really special when you have people that really care about your success and help fuel the drive to go get more success. So hopefully we can build on this momentum we've had the past 2 days of solid runs and keep going.
Well, Zach Novak, congratulations on the podium finish here in the ERL from Daytona. Congrats, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, bud.
There's Zach Novak, who finishes P3, and I'll turn right back to Brett Suggs and take his final thoughts first on tonight's 70 Minutes of Chaos presented by Toby Christie from the ESports Racing League, presented by Sim Seats at Daytona International Speedway. First time up here in the booth, Brett, and what did you notice? What did you see?
Well, I had an absolute blast up here in the Podium Esports booth. Want to thank you guys for inviting me first off, but it was very interesting to see the overall battle of attrition between some of these drivers, as if they could keep the finners on, if they could keep a clean stock car, they could have what it takes to make up some positions here late in the race, as it was a 70-minute chaotic event. Chaotic stands true for this TobyChristie.com race. So these drivers that kept it underneath them, stayed smart, stayed cool, those are the ones you see. We just interviewed them, your podium. They kept it up front and they maintained pace the entire race. So it's very neat to see the different driving styles, and jumping on board for this broadcast at a road course for my very first time. I'm more of an oval guy. That's what I grew up racing in real life on. So it was really a change of pace for me personally to try and spectate a road course and make some calls and strategy plays based off what I'm seeing here out of these drivers. But a phenomenal job by everybody involved, and would love to certainly be back for next race.
Before we turn to Justin Prince, we'll turn quickly to Connor Horn, who finished in the fifth spot. And Connor, ever so briefly, tell us about how your race went tonight.
It was kind of all over the place. It was pretty fast in practice. The qualifying lap was a bit shaky. I think I was capable of a 49.6, overshot the final chicane, so it put me back farther than I wanted to be. I was a little bit mid-pack, and it was really scary trying to avoid a lap 1 incident. I was 3 wide with a couple drivers there. I think Tucker Minter and Jose Salas kind of squeezed me there, and that was close. Luckily, my car didn't get destroyed out of that. I was able to carry on, get by Tucker, able to get by a couple other drivers there, and we're coming down to the end of that very first run, and I think I was top 5. I was 4th or 5th, and I was making some decent time up on the guy. The guys ahead of me, actually, no, the guys ahead of me were kind of gone, but I was kind of even with them on the long run. I was getting away from the guys who I passed, Burrows, Salick, Martinez. I was going to stretch the fuel to the end already on that run, and then that caution came out that kind of bunched the field back up, which it kind of confused me a little bit. Spent a lot of time coasting around the track, tried to not run out of fuel Then coming down to my pit stop, I missed my pit stall, stalled it out of my pit stall, so I went from like 5th to 14th. So then the restart was pretty chaotic, really bunched up like 3rd or 4th on back behind. I think it was the 21. Everyone was stacking up behind him. I know Donnie Strauss almost pinched me 3 wide, almost put me into a 54's door, almost ended our night there. We were able to recover there, and I was able to keep the rear tires on it enough for that final run. I was able to get by the 54, the 40, and the 29, as well as the 51. So I was able to recover for the top 5 that I think I deserved, but it was definitely a bit more chaotic than I thought it would be.
In Toby Christie's 70 minutes of chaos, no less. So maybe it was fitting. Who do you need to thank for your run tonight?
I got to appreciate Top Flight Computers for coming on. Beard Sim Racer, Ryan Bauer, thanks for getting on my car today. I had a blank car going into Michigan. He hopped on and gave me a sponsor, and couldn't put him on the grid last week at Michigan, but I think I made up for it hopefully this week with a solid run. I was pretty excited going into this week. I figured there was no way, unless I messed up, that I'd miss the race, and I was able to get a really nice run out of it, and hopefully I'm looking okay in the points. Also, thanks to Alec Martinez, Yusuf Ghali, AJ Stravato, and a couple other guys. And also, Mark Emerson was in there as well, helping me out on the box a little bit there. I appreciate them. They were racing me clean because we were all together there, and also Kate and Rush were also racing me clean there for the most part. It was pretty fun to race with them guys on that final run. Thought I could have maybe gotten only one spot better, but I'm taking a top 5 after how badly last week went.
Well, Connor, congratulations on your top 5. We'll see you next week at Gateway.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Connor Horn, P5. Justin Prince, your final thoughts on this evening.
Really intriguing race tonight that took a lot of work to try and make sure you kept your car clean and had the fastest pace tonight. It took a lot of strategy tonight. It took perfection this evening, and it took patience to determine the race winner. And as we've seen, Blake Reynolds was able to time up the pass for the perfect timing and was patient with this move, was able to pull away. While the others, for a second on back, they weren't as patient. They were trying to bump and bang to get around on a driver who tried a strategy call and had to fix damage, mind you, in said strategy call, and still kept the lead lap and race lead for the green flag. That's partly what determined this race tonight. It was an interesting race, and it once again lived up to its namesake, to say the very least this evening here, James, with how active it was on this racetrack and how crazy it got.
Well, big thanks to everybody for tuning in tonight. Before we take off, a few more events to tell you about. First up, the GameWorks Racing League from Bristol on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern over on twitch.tv/Podium Esports as the Cup cars take to the high banks of Thunder Valley. The next Monday night, the Sim 500 Trans Surface Cup Series is back from Dover International Speedway. Before a doubleheader on Wednesday night, the Esports Racing League heads to Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway for the Bacardi Setup Shops 130K. And then the Cars Esports Tour is back in action from Martinsville Speedway around 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you to everybody at the ERL, Anthony Alfredo, Chris Mulhall, Strix Pulse Trinks and Company working the tower this evening. A big thanks to Toby Christie for his support of the ERL tonight, the presenting partnership of the Toby Christie 70 Minutes of Chaos. Thank you to SimSeats for their presenting partnership of the Esports Racing League, and then to our team at Podium Esports. Francisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, my colleagues in the booth tonight, Justin Prince and Brett Suggs, and for our producer, Ryan Bauer, I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday night from Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway.
everybody, Anthony Alfredo here, driver of the number 21 Chevrolet Camaro for Richard Childress Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, as well as CEO and founder of the